Star Wars. Young Jedi Knights. Jedi Under Siege, Chapter 9. After crossing the river, Jaina fought her way through the jungle, seeking a suitable path through the thick underbrush while keeping herself hidden from other attackers. Right now, the tangled forest was her ally, and she could use the cover to her advantage. She wasn't afraid to combat the Dark Jedi threatening the Academy, but she had a vital mission in mind, something more to her tastes. As long as the defensive energy shields remained down and the generator damaged, the entire area was vulnerable to repeated attacks from the skies. Luke Skywalker's trainees were defending themselves, but if Jaina could somehow repair the shield generator and get the protective force field up again, the Jedi Knights could take care of these audacious enemies one at a time. Jaina finally made her way into the clearing where her father and Chewbacca had recently installed the new energy shield generator. With only a glance, she knew that the machinery was irreparable, despite her usual knack for fixing things. Normally, she could make temporary repairs to get systems up and running again, at least for a while, but not this case. An Imperial saboteur had used thermal detonators to wipe out the entire generating station. It was hopelessly ruined. A pile of shrapnel, no simple fix would do. Jane's attention remained on the generator only for a moment. However, she caught her breath. There in the clearing sat an Imperial TIE fighter in perfect condition. Ever since Chewbacca had given Loie the T-32 Skyhopper, Jaina had longed for a vehicle of her own. That, in fact, had been the impetus behind her desire to repair the crashed TIE fighter the young Jedi Knights had found in the jungles. Quarrel's TIE fighter. She stopped and stared, frozen with excitement and apprehension. But other than muffled noises of battle in the jungle and the distant sounds of blaster fire near the Great Temple, she heard no sound. Jaina withdrew her lightsaber and pressed the violet power stud. The beam sprang forward, glowing an electric violet. Then she crept forward steadily, ready to fight if the TIE pilot emerged with his drawn blaster. But she sensed no one else around, heard no noise from the craft. "Hello?" Jaina called out. "You better surrender if you're an Imperial." She waited. Is anyone here?" Only the simmering jungle noises answered her. Moving forward, letting her eagerness take over, she ran to the abandoned TIE fighter. It was a sinister-looking ship, a rounded cockpit suspended between two flat hexagonal power arrays, twin ion engines that would propel the small fighter across space, a bank of deadly laser cannons. Ideas and possibilities thundered through her mind. If she could pilot the ship into the enemy midst, Jaina would be in disguise. She could slip in among them, and they wouldn't know she was actually an enemy until it was too late. Switching off her lightsaber again, Jaina opened the cockpit hatch and crawled inside. She studied how TIE fighters worked when she and her friends replaced the components of Quarrel's crashed ship. She knew the buttons on the control panel. She knew how systems activated. Though the exiled old pilot had flown off in his ship before Jaina had a chance to take it on a flight, she was confident she could handle the craft. She settled into the pilot's seat, noting the oily scent of stale lubricants and the sour odors the Emperor did not bother to remove. A breather mask hung next to the small life support console. The cockpit walls closed around her like a protective shell, giving her little room to move, but all the controls were at her fingertips. Through the ship's front porch, she could see outside. Jaina found the power switch and toggled it on, felt the engines thrumming, systems gearing up, batteries charging, control lights winking on and a brilliant flurry around her. She drew a deep breath, strapped herself in, and clutched the controls. "All systems ready for takeoff," she whispered to herself. She glanced up at the sky, looking for the black specks of other Imperial ships. "Okay, TIE fighters, prepare for some company." The Imperial craft raised up as Jaina worked the controls. Clearing the jungle treetops, she felt the exhilaration of actually flying. The ship seemed unbelievably quiet inside, until she realized the noisier primary engines had been disengaged. The TIE fighters flew so quietly because it used only the lesser power engines. So that's how the enemy pilot had gotten under the shield unnoticed. No doubt the original systems remained intact, but the enemy commando had slipped in without the familiar howl of TIE engines. All right then, Jaina thought. She could be silent and deadly as well. Finally skimming the treetops, she scanned around, acquiring targets. She shot forward, reveling in the thrill of flight. The landscape passed beneath her in a molted green blur.
Daddy, look! Boom.
Up ahead, she saw 6 TIE fighters flying in formation, furring down the treetops, pounding the temple ruins, even structures that had never been used for Jedi training. The Palace of Wolmander, an ancient ruin already nearly collapsed, was pummeled with brilliant streaks from laser cannons. Although Jaina didn't believe any Jedi Knights had gone there, she kept the Imperial comm channels on so she could hear the terse, gruff chatter as TIE pilots discussed their overall plan, choosing targets, firing at moving figures sheltered by thick Masashi trees. Jaina kept her microphone off, though, as she joined the formation of the TIE fighters, slipping in at the rear. Over the comm system, she heard them acknowledge her arrival. Rather than making them suspicious by speaking over a young woman's voice, she just clicked an OK over the microphone. Then she powered up her laser cannons. One of the TIE fighters broadcast, "Plenty of targets here for everybody. Let's cause some damage." Jaina bit her lower lip and nodded. "Yes," she muttered to herself.
She's gonna do damage to them.
Let's cause some damage. Jaina bit her lower lip. "Yes," she muttered to herself. "Let's cause some damage." She let her eyes fall partially closed and concentrated, feeling the force. Despite the sensors and systems available in the TIE fighter, nothing could match the heightened Jedi perceptions. For enhancing her movement, she needed to target and fire and target again with lightning speed. She would have only one chance. Jaina gripped the control stick of her on the firing aiming mechanisms, flying smoothly behind the unsuspecting Imperials. She had to disable them with one shot each. She couldn't risk repeated fire on a single target, because once she started shooting, they would be rather upset with her. Jaina sought out the most vulnerable points, their engines and the joints that held the planar power arrays to their sides. If the TIE fighters turned side on her, she would blast the power arrays themselves, large targets, impossible to mix. Despite giving a silent countdown, Jaina pointed her lasers at the closest ship. "What am I waiting for?" she asked herself. Gritting her teeth, she fired a single shot, then swiveled the laser cannons, moving with hyperspeed to target a second TIE fighter. Even before her second bolt struck the primary narrow joint on the next to the cockpit and sliced off the planar array, the first TIE fighter careered into a spin. Jaina blasted again at the rear pods of the second ship. The TIE fighter exploded in front of her, momentarily blinding her, but she quickly averted her eyes. As she brought the laser cannons to bear on a third target, Jaina heard the TIE pilots shouting in outrage and panic. The formation began to split apart. She didn't have much time. The third TIE fighter turned toward her, and Jaina strafed across its surface, severing one of the planar arrays and striking the viewports in the cockpit. The third ship went down. But by now, the 3 remaining Imperials had spun around and were headed straight toward her. Jaina blinked as fiery bolts from their laser cannons shot past her. She put her TIE fighter into a spin, now using the Force to anticipate the incoming weapons fire, just as her Uncle Luke had used his lightsaber to deflect blaster bolts. She spun, turned, banked, and began to fly at her fighter's top speed. But the other 3 Imperial ships came howling after her, releasing a constant volley of laser fire, ignoring targets just below now that they had acquired a single target, a traitor in their midst. Jaina ducked and dodged, but no longer enjoying the thrill of flight. She had a bad feeling about her impulsive attack. She streaked over the jungle, 3 TIE fighters hot on her tail.